The crash in Sector 9. The sky was burning above Sector 9, filled with smoke and sparks as a cargo ship fell from orbit. Its engines screamed like wounded beasts, leaving trails of fire across the alien sky. Inside the broken ship, alarms blared and metal groaned. Only one man was still alive: Leo. A young human engineer with grease on his hands and fear in his eyes. The ship slammed into the jungle canopy with a bone-shaking crash. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and silence followed. Then came the groan of a man trying to breathe. Leo opened his eyes, blood dripping from his forehead. He reached for his belt, unhooked it, and crawled out of the wreckage. The air outside was thick and hot, smelling like ash and flowers. Strange lights flickered between the trees, and the sounds of unknown animals echoed around him. Leo staggered forward, calling for help. But his voice faded into the wild. Then he saw her, a girl, or something like a girl, stood between the vines. She was tall, with lavender skin, glowing marks along her arms, and a long tail curling behind her. Her eyes were sharp, yellow like a tiger's, and her ears twitched like they heard too much. She didn't move at first, just stared at him like he was a puzzle she didn't expect to find. Leo raised his hand slowly, unsure if she was friend or foe. "I don't need help," he said, even though his knees were shaking. But the girl stepped forward, grabbed his arm, and pulled him into the trees. "Wait, stop, what are you doing?" he cried, but she didn't let go. Her grip was strong, claws gentle but firm. Leo tried to break free, but every time he struggled, she just yanked harder. "I said, I don't need you," he shouted, voice echoing through the trees. The girl finally turned, her face close to his, eyes blazing. She didn't say a word, but her look was clear. He didn't understand the danger. Not yet. Behind them, something growled, low and heavy, from the trees above. Wings unfolded, black and leathery. Two huge creatures landed on the wreck. Sniffing the air where Leo had been, they were hunting, and they were close. The girl pulled Leo behind a giant root, motioning for silence. She drew a small blade from her belt, crouched low, and waited. The beasts sniffed the air again, then roared, shaking the leaves. Leo covered his ears, heart pounding like thunder in his chest. Then he felt a hand on his back, not pushing him away, but shielding him. She was defending him. The creatures sniffed again and moved on, disappearing. Into the night, the girl stood up, breathing hard, and looked down at Leo. "Why?" he asked softly. "Why save me?" She didn't answer, just pulled him up and led him deeper into the jungle. They walked in silence for hours, the jungle glowing with bioluminescent plants and humming with strange life. Leo limped along, one leg aching badly, but she didn't slow down. At last, they reached a cave hidden behind vines and rocks. She pushed him inside and blocked the entrance with stones. Inside, it was warm and quiet. The girl lit a glowing crystal from her pouch and placed it near the wall. Then she pulled a satchel from her shoulder and handed him a wrapped leaf. Inside was food, some kind of sweet root and dried meat. Leo stared at it, then at her, confused and tired. She pointed at the food, then at his stomach, and nodded. He ate. Still watching her, she sat across from him, legs crossed, tail coiled beside her. Her eyes never left the entrance, always watching, always alert. Leo wanted to ask more questions, but his throat was dry and his mind spinning. Still, one thing stood out: this girl, alien or not, had saved him from death, fed him, and guarded him as he lay back on the stone floor. Trying to make sense of it all, he whispered again, "I don't need you." But before his eyes closed, he saw her curl up just a few feet away, her tail twitching like a heartbeat. She didn't respond to his words, didn't argue, didn't move. She just stayed there, close, as if she knew the truth. He didn't want to admit he wasn't going to survive this place alone. Asterisk, she's not supposed to help him. morning arrived, with a soft glow. Spreading through the jungle like fire in slow motion, Leo opened his eyes to find the alien girl already awake, crouched near the cave entrance. Watching the outside, she looked like a statue carved from starlight and war. He wondered if she'd slept at all. Leo's arms still throbbed where the crash had bruised him, and his leg was worse, swollen and purple. He winced as he sat up. And without a word, the girl approached. She knelt beside him, opened her pouch, and pulled out a roll of thick moss and a wooden vial. He tried to say something, but she shook her head and began treating his leg with smooth, practiced hands. The bomb stung, but he didn't pull away, not this time, when she finished. She sat back, looking at him, her eyes unreadable. Leo tried again, slowly. "Why are you helping me?" She blinked, then stood and pointed to herself. "Vera," she said softly, tapping her chest. He hesitated, then pointed to himself. "Leo." A small smile pulled at the corner of her lips. The first he had seen. Then she motioned for him to follow. Leo groaned and got to his feet, limping behind her as she led him through the jungle once more. They walked for what felt like hours, until they reached a deep ravine filled with thick fog and strange vines that pulsed like veins. Vera pointed across it to a structure half buried in an ancient alien ruin. As they approached, Leo saw symbols etched into the stone walls. Glowing faintly in the dim light, the place felt abandoned, but alive at the same time. Inside the ruin, broken statues and shattered tech littered the ground. Leo knelt beside a busted console, brushing dirt off the surface. It looked like communication equipment. Maybe he could fix it. Vera stayed close, watching his movements without interrupting. Then he noticed the writing on the wall, carved deep and angry. He couldn't read the alien script, but the symbols repeated over and over. Like a warning, he pointed at it, raising an eyebrow. Vera looked away, her face suddenly cold. He followed her gaze to a corner where a rusted suit of armor rested. The same symbols glowed on its chest, and beside it was a spear, broken in half. She walked to it slowly and knelt down, touching the armor like it once belonged to someone she loved or hated. Leo realized something was wrong, very wrong. Vera wasn't just some jungle girl. She was a soldier, maybe even a warrior once. Part of something powerful. But now she was hiding, alone. In ruins, where her own kind wouldn't follow. Why would someone like her risk everything to save a human? Suddenly, a worry sound echoed through the ruins. Vera's head snapped up, and she ran to the shadows, pulling Leo with her. A metal drone floated into the chamber. Scanning the area with a red light, Vera pressed a finger to her lips, then pointed to a vent in the ceiling. They climbed into the shaft just before the drone passed below. Inside, it was tight and dark, but safe. Leo looked at her, whispering, "Was it looking for you?" She didn't answer, but her trembling hands told him everything. When they reached the surface again, the sky had darkened and rain began to fall. Vera found shelter under a rock ledge where she lit another crystal. Leo sat beside her, wiping water from his face. "I think you're running from something," he said softly. "Or maybe from someone?" Still, she said nothing, just stared into the rain. He watched her tail twitch with tension, and her jaw clench like she was fighting herself. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet and rough. "Vera, not help human." Leo tilted his head, confused. "Then why did you?" She looked away, eyes burning with guilt. Vera broke command, so she was forbidden to help him. He realized the drone wasn't just a scanner, it was hunting her, and still, she chose to save him. Feed him, walk beside him, even though it marked her as a traitor. Leo looked at her, this silent warrior who risked everything for him. "I don't understand your world," he said, "but I know what it means to be left behind." She met his eyes then, and this time, didn't look away. They sat in the rain for hours, two outcasts in a world that didn't want either of them. And as the thunder rolled across the jungle, Leo finally whispered, "I don't need you." But his voice trembled, and his hands were clenched too tight to believe it. Vera leaned closer, her voice barely more than breath. "Leo need Vera." And this time, he didn't argue. Enemies within the old ruin became their shelter. Leo had turned one corner into a workshop, building a signal beacon from scrap and broken tech. Vera kept watch, always circling the edges, always listening. She didn't sleep much, and when she did, it was curled tightly like a soldier waiting to be struck. The beacon needed power, and Leo needed time. He worked long hours under the soft blue light of alien crystals. Adjusting wires and rerouting circuits, Vera brought him metal scraps, strange energy cells, and rare vines that stored charge. Even without words, they worked like a team. One night, while testing a battery, Leo noticed deep claw marks on Vera's side, hidden beneath her tunic. "Who did this to you?" he asked, standing slowly. She tensed, then stepped back. Shaking her head, her body said no, but her eyes screamed yes. Someone had hurt her. Recently, Leo wanted to shout, to demand answers, but he didn't. Instead, he went back to work. Pretending he didn't notice the blood on her side, Vera limped that day, but still helped him without complaint. He hated how quiet she had become, like she was waiting for something bad to happen. And that bad thing came fast. It was dusk. When they heard boots crunching the dry leaves outside the ruins, Vera froze in place, every muscle locked. Leo peeked from behind a broken pillar. His heart thudding, three tall figures stepped into the ruins, clearing armored aliens. Faces hidden by black visors, weapons drawn, they called out in a harsh tongue, their voices sharp like broken glass. Vera stood slowly and walked toward them, her hands raised. Leo tried to stop her, but she gave him a firm look, a silent order to stay back. The soldiers shouted her name, "Vera." She answered calmly, but with shaking hands. One of them snarled, walked up to her, and slapped her across the face. Leo gasped, but held back, hidden in the shadows. The soldier shouted more words, then pointed at the ruin. Vera answered with quiet fire in her voice, defiant but respectful. That's when Leo heard it, the word human, repeated again and again. They knew she was with him. And they were furious. The tallest soldier threw something at her feet. A piece of cloth torn, red, soaked in blood. Vera stared at it, then looked down, jaw trembling. Leo stepped out of the shadows before he could stop himself, shouting, "Stop it!" The three soldiers spun toward him, weapons aimed. Vera leaped in front of him, arms wide, shielding him. They barked something in disbelief, one of them calling her a word that sounded like traitor. Vera didn't move, didn't blink, didn't let them see her fear. Leo stood behind her, his voice shaking. "She saved my life." They didn't care. The leader raised his weapon, aiming at Leo. Vera growled a deep, sharp sound from her throat. Tand drew her blade. The standoff hung in the air like a sword above a thread. Then the soldiers backed away slowly, shouting more insults. They left without firing a shot, but their message was clear. Next time, there would be no warnings. When they were gone, Leo turned to her, furious. "They were going to kill you," he said. "Because of me." Vera sat down, arms shaking, blade resting on her lap. "They kill me anyway," she whispered. For leaving, Leo finally understood. She hadn't just broken orders by saving him. She had broken her whole world, walked away from her kind. And now, they wanted her erased, all because she helped one human. He knelt beside her and offered a broken chunk of metal, his first attempt at a transmitter. She looked at it, confused. "It's not much," he said, "but it's a start." He didn't know if they'd ever get off this planet. But one thing was clear. He wasn't going to let her face this war alone. Vera didn't say thank you, didn't smile, didn't cry. She just reached out, touched his hand, and squeezed it softly. That night, they sat together in silence as the jungle roared around them. Enemies had found them, and more were coming. His turn to protect train hammered the jungle roof as Leo worked deep in the ruins. He had rewired the ancient alien console and fitted his salvaged beacon to the core. It wasn't perfect, but it blinked now. Each flicker meant hope, a signal reaching for the sky. Vera stood nearby, her tail coiled tight, eyes never resting. Her wounds had grown darker. Slower to heal, Leo watched her limp, but she still never asked for help. She only stared at the trees like shadows might leap from them at any moment. He approached her with a water canister and said softly, "You should rest." She shook her head, pressing her hand to the wall as if it gave her strength. Then she leaned forward suddenly, gripping her side. Blood dripped through the bandages she'd wrapped herself in. "That's it," Leo said, stepping closer. "Sit down." Vera tried to push him away, but he didn't budge this time. He held her by the shoulders, lowering her gently onto a flat stone. Then he knelt and began changing her dressing. Hands trembling as he touched her warm skin, she stared at him, confused but silent. "You've bled enough for me," he whispered. "Let me do something for you." For the first time, she didn't pull away. The wound was deep, clawed by one of her own. He cleaned it, wrapped it tighter, and tucked her cloak around her shoulders. Her breath slowed as she watched him. Like something inside her had loosened. She looked at his hands, then placed hers over them. Strong, rough, but grateful. That night, they didn't speak, but they sat close by the beacon. Its blue light blinked in rhythm, like a heartbeat in the dark. By morning, the jungle had gone too quiet. No birds, no insects, no rustling leaves. Vera stood suddenly, weapon drawn. Leo grabbed his toolkit and stuffed it into a pack. Then came the sound boots on wet ground. Multiple steps, fast, the soldiers had returned. And this time, they weren't alone. Explosive fire lit up the jungle entrance as a blast shook the ruins. Vera pushed Leo behind a wall, snarling something in her native tongue. He grabbed her hand. "We run together," but she shoved him toward the exit tunnel. "No," she said, voice cold and steady. "You run." Leo refused. "Not without you." A burst of energy struck the wall beside them, sending shards of rock flying. One tore through Leo's shoulder, spinning him to the ground. He gasped, hand clamping the wound. Vera screamed, not in fear, but fury. She turned toward the attackers and charged like lightning. Her body became motion. Her blade flashed silver and red. The soldiers didn't expect it. They never expected one of their own to strike first. She cut through two before they could fire. But the last raised his cannon at Leo. Time slowed. Leo tried to crawl, but blood soaked his side. The weapon locked onto him, glowing bright. Then a blur of purple and fire slammed into the soldier, tearing the weapon from his hands. Vera stood over Leo, his chest rising and falling like thunder. Her body shook from wounds, but her eyes never left the fallen soldier. She reached down and lifted Leo like he weighed nothing. Carrying him through the smoke-filled corridor, they reached a river near the base of the mountain. She set him down gently beneath a thick root and collapsed beside him. He looked at her face, bruised and bloodied, and whispered, "Why?" She smiled faintly, voice like a whisper in the rain. "Because Leo protects Vera too." He nodded weakly and leaned against her shoulder. Their bodies shivering in the cold, but refusing to let go that night as the storm passed and the jungle sang again. Vera didn't sleep alone, and for the first time, Leo didn't feel like a survivor. He felt like her equal, not just the human she saved, but the one who stayed. The silent city, the jungle, gave way to silence as the river thinned into fog. Vera moved slowly, her arm wrapped tight in bandages Leo made from his own shirt. Leo limped beside her, every step aching but every breath stronger than before. They had survived the soldiers, but the beacon had been destroyed. With no signal and no way to call for help, Leo looked to Vera. She pointed across the river, toward a valley where mist rolled like waves. "There," she whispered, voice thin but sure. "Old city." He followed her gaze and saw a structure, rising through the fog towers of stone and glowing vines. It took them 2 days to reach the edge. The air inside the valley was still. Not dead, just waiting. Trees here were taller, their roots twisting around broken bridges and shattered statues. Vera stopped at a gate made of black metal, ancient and cracked. She pressed her hand to a panel, and the doors groaned open. Leo stared in awe as the city revealed itself. Floating lights hovered above cracked walkways. Crystal towers flickered like memories trapped in stone. They entered a building shaped like a dome, its walls covered in etched maps and pulsing wires. "This place," Leo whispered. "It's still alive." Vera nodded, leading him through winding halls where echoes walked beside them. She stopped at a console, brushing dust from its surface. Leo examined the device. Alien tech, yes, but familiar in some strange way. He pulled out what remained of his toolkit and got to work. If he could power it up, maybe he could send a signal. Vera sat nearby, sharpening her blade, but watching him closely. As he connected wires and sparked circuits back to life, a humming noise filled the chamber. Lights danced across the walls, and the console blinked awake. Leo grinned. "It works." Vera stepped forward, touching a symbol that opened a holographic screen. She looked at the data, then frowned. Words scrawled across the ancient code, but clear enough to understand. "Warning. Hunter active." Leo glanced at her. "Hunter?" Vera's face tightened. "Sound killer," she said. "No eyes, only ears." He turned pale, realizing what that meant. Whatever it was, it hunted noise. And he had just reactivated an entire city. They had to move fast. Leo downloaded the signal and encrypted it into a beacon chip. Vera helped him connect it to a high tower at the edge of the city. The beacon lit blue, flashing skyward. Then the ground shook, just once. A sound like thunder crawling under the earth echoed from the east. Vera's ears twitched violently. "It comes," she whispered. Grabbing her spear, they didn't run. They couldn't. Any sound might bring it faster, so they crept through. The city like shadows. Leo winced every time he stepped on loose stone. From the mist, a shape appeared, not walking, but gliding, huge and featureless. With skin like polished bone, it clicked as it moved. Listening for heartbeats, Leo's breath caught, but he dared not move. Vera pressed her back to his, holding her weapon ready. The creature passed within meters of them, sniffing the air. Leo could feel the vibration in his teeth. Suddenly, a rat-like creature nearby screeched. The hunter turned instantly and charged. In seconds, the animal was gone, torn apart without a sound. Leo trembled, sweat running down his neck. They made it to the lower levels where the walls blocked sound better. But Leo had dropped one of his tools in the rush. It clinked against metal. Just once, the hunter turned, head twitching toward the noise. Vera stood up slowly, blade in hand. Leo grabbed her arm, shaking his head. "No," he mouthed. She shook him off, walked forward. And threw a stone in the opposite direction. The hunter lunged toward the sound. Giving them seconds to move, Vera grabbed Leo and pulled him through a narrow hall. They reached the far side of the city just as the beacon flashed green. "Signal sent," Leo whispered. But Vera didn't smile. She sat down on the ground, her back against a wall. She looked tired, too tired. Leo knelt beside her. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, "Now you go." He blinked, confused. What? You go home? She whispered. Vera not belong there. He felt his chest tighten after all this. She still thought he would leave her behind. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I don't want to go if you're not coming too, he said. But she turned her head, hiding her face, not with anger, but with fear. Fear of being left again, fear of not being wanted, and the truth. Wasleo did want her, but the signal was already flying toward the stars. And time was running out. The Rescue the Stars blinked above the silent city as the jungle wind slowed to stillness. Leo sat beside Vera, watching the beacon pulse skyward. His shoulders still burned, his body tired. But none of it mattered now. He had done it, the signal was out. Vera hadn't spoken much since. She kept her eyes on the trees, as if afraid that the answer to their call would be another enemy. When Leo tried to take her hand, she let him but didn't grip back. It wasn't rejection, it was fear. She had given him everything, even when her world turned against her, and now she was certain he'd leave her behind. So when the thunder rolled through the clouds, she didn't smile. She stood quietly and walked to the edge of the clearing, watching the sky. A ship broke through the atmosphere like a spear of silver flame. Human rescue crew, armed and fast, landed just outside the ruined city. Vera took one step back into the shadows. Leo followed her and grabbed her hand before she could vanish. You're coming with me, he said. She shook her head slowly. They won't accept. I don't care, he replied. They don't. Get to decide. Soldiers poured out of the ship, guns raised, scanning the area. Leo waved his arms, shouting, Don't shoot, we're friendly. They rushed over, weapons still aimed, eyes landing on Vera. She didn't flinch, but Leo saw her tail curl inward, nervous. One soldier stepped forward, eyes narrowing. Is that one of them? He asked sharply. Leo moved between them, arms out. She's the reason I'm alive. She's a deserter, the soldier replied. She's marked. Another soldier scanned her with a handheld reader. An alarm beeped, red lights flashing. Her species is flagged as hostile, he said. Orders say no entry. Leo felt a cold rage rise in his chest. She saved me when no one else would, he said. She fought her own kind to protect me. That doesn't erase protocol, the commander said. Stepping out from the ship, she disobeyed her people. Leo shouted, Now you want her punished for saving a human? The team hesitated, watching the scene, unsure what to do. Leo stepped closer to the commander and pulled out his data chip. Look at the logs, he said. Body cam footage, communication records, all of it. The commander took the chip and slid it into his tablet. A hologram appeared, showing Vera shielding Leo, killing enemy soldiers, feeding him. The faces of the humans watching began to change. From suspicion to doubt, from doubt to quiet respect. She gave up everything for me. Leo said again, softer this time. I won't leave without her. The commander watched the footage one more time, then turned to Vera. You want to come with him? Vera glanced at Leo, unsure. He nodded, his grip firm on her wrist. Yes, she whispered. The commander sighed. Then she's under your protection. A sigh of relief escaped Leo's lungs. He turned to Vera, eyes burning with gratitude. She didn't smile yet, not until the cuffs came off. Then, for the first time, she stepped forward, not as his guardian, but as his equal. They boarded the ship together. The door sealed behind them, cutting off the jungle's cries. Vera sat beside Leo, quiet, tense. Unsure of what would come next, he looked at her and whispered, I told you, I'm not leaving you. She looked down at her hands, fingers trembling. Leo reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. You don't need to be alone anymore, he said. Still, she didn't answer, but she didn't pull away either when the ship rose into the sky. Cutting through clouds and stars, Vera leaned. against his shoulder, her tail curling beside his boot. And though she didn't say a word, Leo could feel that she was beginning to believe him. I don't need you, but I want youth human ship floated in orbit above the alien jungle. Inside the medbay, clean and cold, Leo sat on a padded table. His shoulder was bandaged. Ribs scanned, wounds nearly healed, but his heart was heavy with silence. Across the room, Vera sat alone in the corner. Her cloak folded neatly beside her, eyes locked on the stars outside the window. She hadn't spoken since the ship took off. Not a word, not a glance. Every human on board avoided her eyes. Some whispered, some stared, but none dared approach her to them. She was still a traitor from the wrong species, even though she saved one of their own. Leo walked across the medbay and sat beside her. You okay? He asked gently. She didn't move, just tilted her head slightly. They still don't want me here, she said, voice cold. Leo reached for her hand, but she kept it in her lap. They're scared, he said, but they'll learn. Vera looked at him with eyes full of something he hadn't seen before. Doubt. Will they? She asked. Or will you leave me behind when they tell you to? His jaw tightened. I won't, he said simply. She turned away, whispering the words that broke his chest open. I don't need you. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she added, softer, but I wanted you to stay. Leo's hand finally touched hers, warm and real. I know, he whispered. And I'm not going anywhere. Later, in the debriefing chamber, Leo stood before a council of officers. Screens behind him played footage of the jungle, the ruins, the battles. He told them everything, not just about survival, but about loyalty, about Vera. She's not a danger, he said. She's proof that even our enemies have hearts. The council exchanged long glances. One officer cleared his throat. And what do you suggest we do with her? Leo answered without hesitation. Let her live among us. Another officer raised a brow. And if she turns on us, she won't. Leo said, because we never gave her a reason to in the first place. They gave no answer that day, only said they would consider it. But when Leo left the chamber, he found Vera waiting outside the door. Still quiet, still unsure, but still there. He took her hand this time, and she didn't pull away. They walked the hall together, step by step, past eyes and whispers. And in that walk, something changed. Not in the humans watching, but in Vera's eyes. She began to lift her head, her shoulders straightened, her tail no longer tucked in close. She walked not behind Leo, but beside him, as if the ship itself had become a little more hers. In the days that followed, Leo showed her human books. He taught her Earth languages, and she taught him hers. They laughed when translations got messy, and sat in silence when memories made them quiet again. One morning, as the ship orbited above the moon base, Leo stood near the docking hatch. He was cleared to return to Earth. He turned to her. You coming? Vera hesitated, her fingers brushing the hatch door. I don't belong there, she whispered. You belong with me, he said. She looked at him, searching for a lie, but found none. I don't need you, she said again, but this time her voice didn't carry walls, only truth. I don't need you to survive. She said, I can fight, I can live, I can walk without you. Leo nodded, silent, letting her finish. But I want you, she said, finally. And I don't want to walk alone anymore. He smiled and held out his hand. She took it, strong and sure. Together, they stepped into the light, leaving behind two broken worlds, to build a new one where trust was earned, where love didn't need to be shouted to be real, and where an alien girl who once dragged a stranger through a jungle now chose to walk beside him forever.